Kimberly has joined us. All right, so we will go into roll call. Call the meeting to order.
Chairman Figueroa.
Present.
Vice Chairman Rankin.
Present.
Ms. Favale.
Present.
Mr. Cohen. Mr. Cohen is absent. Mr. Rita.
Present.
Ms. D.
Here.
Mr. Fontaine.
Present.
Ms. Swearingen.
Present.
Ms. Ray.
Present.
You have 8 present and 1 absent. You do have a quorum.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Sean, if we could put the agenda up on the screen.
Sure.
Thank you. While Sean is doing that, just want to let you all know that we've had a double booking for tonight's meeting. The finance, my understanding is that the finance committee is having a meeting tonight, and they're also using this same Zoom address. So we have until 6:30 to, or just before 6:30 to conclude business for today. I don't think that's going to be enough time to get through all of these items that are here, but we do have another scheduled meeting in December. I don't know, I think it's next week, next Wednesday, where we can continue the conversation over any items that we're not able to cover this evening. In addition, I have to hop off at 6 o'clock for a work meeting. So what I will do is turn over the meeting responsibilities to Vice Chair Rankin. All right, thank you very much. So with that said, we'll hop into our first item here, which is discussion and vote to request that the City Council conduct an audit of PERA's spending from the inception of PERA to present. Who would like to lead the discussion around that topic? That's Susan.
Thank you. I think it's important that we do have this audit. We had not received any financial reports previously. So I think it would be a great starting off point for a new executive director who's going to be coming in, that would have a clear picture of what our spending has been, what's been spent, so on.
Okay, thank you. All right, so in terms of the type of audit that you're looking for, you say from the inception of PERA, so going right to the very first budget that we received, any of the expenditures associated with that, and also the ones from that date from last year until now.
Right, all up until now.
Right. So I guess we can, if there are no discussions here before we entertain a motion, you know, we can ask questions, or we can go right into a motion and just have the discussion as part of the vote.
So I have a discussion. The audit would also look at the spending for our investigator, right? Because I know we had asked, you know, we were thinking about hiring a full-time investigator. So, you know, that's still important to me because I want to hold true to what we had asked for before. So just want to make sure that that's also outlined in this audit.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just join in on that. I think that's what Susan's asking for. We just need probably a top to bottom look at everything, figure out what's going on, what's, you know, what our expenses are, you know, and I think we'll be better, like you're saying as well, that, you know, what are we going to hire someone at least a start. So getting all those numbers, I think, are important for us to kind of just, you know, get our balance and figure out what we need to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Faneda. Is there a motion?
I would like to entertain a motion that we have a full investigation and audit from start to now.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, the motion has been seconded. We'll head into discussion. any discussion around this topic. The one caution that I would have here is that we don't label this an investigation, but rather an audit as a normal process of business operation.
Agreed.
Yeah, in the normal course, I agree.
Normal course, yeah.
Normal course, yes.
All right, thank
I
you.
agree.
So just Sean, do we have to restate that motion?
I have that you have a motion.
I would.
You would, okay, thank you.
I'm not very clear. I'm not clear on what exactly you're voting on.
Okay,
So if I would have somebody restate the motion.
all right, thank you. So we'll strike this motion from the floor and we'll open the floor again for a new motion.
I would just say a motion to conduct an audit of all PERA expenditures in a normal course from the inception of PERA until the current date.
All right,
Se-
thank
Second,
you, Michael.
And sorry, I would ask that you further clarify what the inception means, because my understanding is PERA has existed for a very, very long time.
Oh, I thought the new PERA, I thought the old PERA kind of diminished.
Just want to make it completely clear.
All right, why don't we say a motion to conduct an audit in the normal course from the, well, I don't want to make it about the ED, but that's when we kind of began. So unless someone can pull up a date, I would just say from the employment of the previous executive director to the current, but just know that the focus isn't about him. We're just trying to get the numbers. I don't know if anyone, I see Susan, I see your hands up, so.
Yeah, I think January 2019 was kind of the leaping off point when we started to do anything.
Okay, there may have been some expenses, Michael, and you may remember this, associated with the search for the executive director. So we may want to predate that hire.
Yeah, go back a couple of months.
Does anyone have a calendar? I
well, then-
January 2018, a
Yeah.
year before.
There you go.
That's fine.
Okay, there you go.
January 28th. Thank you.
Motion for audit in the normal course of PERA from January 2018 to the present.
and I would like to second that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Okay, further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Sean, the agenda, please.
Yeah, just to confirm, that was a unanimous vote as we have it recorded.
Very good. Okay, so the next agenda item is discuss and vote on next steps to take for hiring an executive director. So I think here, having been involved in the hiring process, I believe Ms. Deb and Michael Fontaine as well, involved in that process. The way that we set it up was to have the resumes sent to a hiring committee, and from that committee, we vetted who the candidates would be in terms of who we would bring into the office to conduct interviews. And if I'm not mistaken, Michael, Ms. Ray, we conducted 2 rounds of interviews before finalizing the hire as a separate function of those 2 interviews. Does that sound correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right, yes.
Yeah. And is that the process we would like to follow again?
I would like to. I thought it was very fair and very open. So yes.
Okay. Very good. So any other thoughts on how we should move forward with the hiring of the new executive director? This includes publicizing the job opening, having initial conversations with potential candidates, and so forth. And do we also need to attach a budget to any of these activities? Susan?
Mr. Chair, I believe Sean can screen share the current job description
Okay.
that we used in the previous round for us to look at. I know that there was a couple of comments about things that we might want to change. And people can chime in on what their comments are.
Okay. Do you have that, Sean?
I apologize. It's going to be one moment because I had to reboot my computer.
No
Technical
worries.
difficulties. I did have that open, but now I have to reopen it. One moment, please.
No worries.
If you might want to start discussion, if you recall what topics you wanted to cover,
Yeah.
I'll be ready in just a moment.
Okay, we can hold on.
Do you want to have people volunteer now for the hiring committee, or would you like to wait until we go through
Actually,
that?
at least that's a really good suggestion. Anyone that would like to, and I think because of the quorum rules, right, we have to make sure that we're under 5 people. Also note that we did have, as part of the hiring process, we did have the head of HR at the time join us in those interviews as well. So that would be an additional person we would want to have in the room. So any takers on folks who would like to participate on that hiring committee?
I would like to volunteer.
I as well.
Ms. Deb?
I'll
Yeah.
do it again. I'll do it again if asked or whatever. Or if someone else wants to do it, that's fine. I just look at any legal credentials that someone's bringing in to
Sure.
the table, so.
Thank you.
I'll participate.
Okay, Vice Chair Rankin. So Michael, perhaps what we can do is, what was that, Susan?
If you needed a number 5, I'm sorry, I wasn't counting.
No, we can't
Yeah,
have.
you can only have 4, I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
yeah, never mind.
All right.
You get, listen, I was on it last time. If, again, if there's any legal questions, I'll be available, but I
Yeah.
just thought that I can kind of,
Yeah.
but whatever, if you
No.
want to step in, Susan, I have no problem with that.
No, that was a very valid point, Michael, about being able to explore legal credentials. So your schedule might be able to do it more than mine. So go ahead.
Well, actually, maybe not. So that's why I'm saying, if you want to jump in, that's fine. I just want, to make sure we have the most qualified, at least in my opinion, legal candidate, legal credentialed candidate.
Well, I'll offer to be an alternate in case somebody can't make it. How's that?
All right, perfect.
Great, thank you. So we'll need somebody to lead that process. Who amongst the group would be the brave soul to want to take the lead and kind of chair that committee? Or we could actually have it co-chaired. Elise, are you interested?
I am interested, but I was going to defer to Vice Chair Rankin.
Okay. Vice Chair Rankin?
Oh no, I'd love to co-chair with you, Elise.
There you
I
go.
would love to co-chair with you.
There you go. Then it's settled.
John, will it be up in a minute or should we start our discussion?
Yeah.
I know we're on a time crunch here.
In 1 more minute, but you could start if you like. I'll just bring it up as soon as I have it.
Okay. I know
So-
that, we're
so-
limited for time.
Yeah. Before we head into that discussion, Vice Chair Rankin, at least perhaps the first step in this whole process is to contact HR and have them assign someone to also sit on the committee.
Sure. I'll touch base with you after this, Machiste, and we'll figure out next steps and etc.
Great, thank you.
Sounds good.
There we are.
I just want to remind you guys, though, the 4 of you that are on the committee, make sure that you don't share anything that you're learning
Yes.
in the meetings that the 4 of you are having with anybody else in the board, unless it's when you're all together. Everybody clear?
Yeah, it's clear. Thank
Yep, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also to follow up on another point that Jillian has made in the past, and I'm guilty of making this mistake, is where we can email each other, but we can't respond to emails because then that becomes a matter of open meetings law. So we have to make sure that we're not conducting business via email. Is that right, Jillian?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, thank you. All right, so we have the job description is here open with duties and responsibilities. I think there are some recommendations or at least some suggestions to kind of tweak what these duties and responsibilities will be. I did see a list earlier today. Susan, I don't know if you have that list, and maybe you want to share what some of those points may be for change.
Yes. So a conversation I know that the last committee had, but it wasn't on the actual job description, was adding that the candidate can only hold the position of executive director so that they'd be available at any time. Another one is provide the authority with monthly reports as outlined in the bylaws. Another recommendation is must participate in 20 hours of professional development through NACOL on an annual basis. And number 2, where it says develop investigative and operational process, it would be adhere to establish intake and review procedures, bylaws, and city ordinance. And as far as the salary pay range goes, I mean, that's what it was a couple of years ago. So I don't know if that is still correct, which is something that HR will have to have input on.
All right, thank you. So maybe we can address these one at a time. Did you want to repeat the first one again, Susan?
Sure. So the first one was that the person can only hold the position of executive director so that they're available at any time.
Okay, how do folks feel about that particular suggestion? As I think about that bullet, I mean, there are plenty of folks that hold 2 positions, so I don't know that we can limit, but I completely understand where this point may be going. But restricting someone from the ability to potentially add additional revenue for themselves, I think we would have a hard time finding someone that could fit that.
Yeah, that was one of the caveats of the original screening committee that was stated verbally.
That was actually,
discussed it several times, so
Yes,
I'm just
verbally.
throwing it out there.
Yeah, verbally, but not codified, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I remember that. I was actually surprised it wasn't codified because my recollection of the discussion was, and again, we have to see, we scaled the salary if it has gone up just because of, cost of living stuff. But we had raised, I believe, the salary for that purpose, that we wanted someone, like Susan was saying, available. And, it just depends. I think if it was lower, we would have maybe more of a problem. Again, we can find out where the salary, kind of tops out. But there's a lot of other positions for I'm sure the state and so on, that you really can't have 2 jobs. When I was a prosecutor, for the most part, you were very limited. You have to come to get approval if you did anything. I know if you wanted to be a U.S. attorney, you don't have another job. Again, you can go and try to seek approval, but for the most part, when you work there and that's it. So I don't have an issue. If people have some reticence, I think you could maybe tack in the words about getting prior approval from the board itself, but that was the original. I think that might be a NACOL thing, was it? Because I think that,
I'm not sure, but I know the city charter also restricts somebody's employment during working hours, that you can't have another position at all during working hours.
So as co-chair of the hiring committee, I'd be happy to speak with HR to identify like what language is used, because I know that there are a number of city and state employees who hold dual positions, but it's with, permission or some sort of, there's caveats there. So, because I don't want to limit somebody's ability to participate in the global economy.
Yeah.
but we certainly have to make sure there's no conflict. So then that's
Absolutely. And we can do it during business hours and et cetera, and things like that. And that's why it would be with board approval or what have you.
Okay, yeah, and I would just check with NACOL too, because they've already probably run up and down this issue numerous times, and they might be able to give us a short answer and even what the exceptions may be. So,
okay. Moving on, the next one was provide the authority with monthly reports as outlined in the bylaws. And I know Elise and I were working on those. I didn't want to bring the bylaws into tonight because we're so limited on time, but
Right.
there was that governance attachment that Elise had that's being incorporated as an addendum to the bylaws. So that's something that will be outlined, what the reporting
So
requirements are.
Susan, in absence of it being presented at a board meeting, you would like to have, like, if we have a monthly report produced by this individual, to include the financials in that report, or
Yes.
is it seeking to bring that report to the meeting?
Elise can speak. She did that section.
Sure.
I've
So
got a
mostly it
rough-
was us having awareness of our financials and also any other actions taken by the executive director when it was not in our monthly meetings. And so it was just a report out, whether it was, and it can be at the board's discretion, it can be at the executive director's discretion of how they think it's best to present that. If we need to waste an hour and a half going through budget line items, then we do that. But if it's, we can get a monthly report and then a high level readout every month at that meeting. And so I am hesitant to change bylaws to put that in there, but that's something,
Sure.
again, we can have that conversation. But moving forward, the reporting and governance and organizational structure is what we are trying to create.
Very good. Thank you.
The next one was must participate in 20 hours of professional development through NACOL on an annual basis. There's no professional development requirements right now.
Yeah. Susan, was that part of what NACOL recommends? Do you know?
I don't know what their hourly recommendation is. I just know that they're a wealth of information, and
Yeah.
just as a little note to fellow board members, there's a lot of free webinars on there right now that are great to take. Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess my follow-up question would be, how realistic is it to meet that 20-hour requirement?
I mean,
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't see a problem with it, because most of their trainings, they're webinar based, and you can just go on and take them. I know that when I was working for a nonprofit, we did have our requirements as to a lot of, professional development that we took. So it's easy to fit into a schedule. I seem to think so.
Any other thoughts?
No, I'm sure there's some conferences also that can be attended as well. So,
Right.
And again, I think our next CD is going to want to also be not a player in our region, but clearly connected with any other directors along the East Coast or nationally.
Yeah.
And that would be a good look for us. And I think, making connections with other EDs is never a bad idea.
Mhm.
Yes.
And NACOL is doing their conferences virtually now too, which is nice.
Can we offer some flexibility in terms of a minimum number of hours up to 20 hours?
I think up to 20 hours is reasonable, and NACOL also recommends training and in-service for all board members, not just the executive director.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good.
Yeah, I would put in a floor. I mean, I guess it depends on what someone's doing, but like in the bar, we have to have 10 hours, I think, of CLE every year, which really isn't much. And I think it would just guarantee that if there's any new developments that we all want to assume someone's going to want to do these things anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can say 10 to 20 hours, but I think there should be a minimum there, or a minimum of one annual conference up to whatever hours. But I think we're going to want whoever is, kind of handling the day-to-day, just to be kind of up to date and abreast with anything that's new and developing.
Sure. Okay. And then the last one was number 2, where it says develop investigative and operational process. Just change that to adhere to establish intake and review procedures, bylaws, and city ordinance, since that we've already done the operational process piece.
Okay. So the question then becomes, what level of flexibility are we giving the executive director to make adjustments to that? Is that something that would require board approval?
to not adhere to
No,
intake?
no, not no to adhere to it, but there may be times where special circumstances may apply, and so a different course of action may be needed. And I just want to make sure that we're not operating from the one size fits all. That there is some operational flexibility for the executive director.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I think in general, any flexibility that might be sought should be on the individual. They're going to come to the board
Individual.
basis because,
Yeah.
Realistically, we're going to have to set parameters for when this ED goes, another one's going to step in. And so just having systems, and that's what Lisa's been saying for a while. We need those systems. And if somebody has a problem, said, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that, or some special circumstance, there's always room for someone to come forward and say, hey, I'm having a difficulty right now with such and such. And that's just human, so as long as we have still those guardrails up for the day-to-day, I think that's the most important thing.
Okay.
I agree. And that's it.
All right, very good. So I think we have some good information there, some adjustments. I'm not sure that's something we need to vote on, but I think would be very useful to the hiring committee to utilize as we look towards replacing or finding an executive director. All right, thank you, Susan.
Thank
Sean, can we put the agenda back up? All right, so looking at that, I just wanted to look at that second bullet again. It does say vote on next steps. So we may have to vote on.
Can I just suggest something?
Go ahead.
So you guys just kind of went through a bullet list of items that you want to either add or are thinking about adding to the job description. And I know that getting the job description out is something obviously that's really important for you guys to get done sooner rather than later. So I would craft a motion that directs somebody to do something with all of the items that you talked about. So some of them I think you're in agreement with adding. Some of them it looks like you might want to look into getting some more information before you add it. So you kind of have to decide what you want to do about all of those bullet points, and then maybe discuss like another version of the job description at the next meeting, which would be next week. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay,
that makes sense.
All right, so is there, would there be a motion on the floor?
I don't have a motion, but I volunteer to put all this together in one bucket and send it out to the rest of the group.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jillian, does that satisfy?
Yeah, it should be a little more specific.
Okay.
So I guess the motion could be, that you move to have Elise work on a new version of the job description based on this conversation to be presented at the next board meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, who would like to present that motion?
Second.
No, we need a motion.
Well, I missed most of that. All right, so just a motion for Ms. Swearingen to compile and propose the discussion points for the executive director. What do we call this? Position. Is that good enough?
Well, I think that's close to what Jillian is looking for.
Seconded.
Seconded by Elise. There we go.
All right, and that was a motion for who to do that?
Elise.
Elise. All right, discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There we go.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you very much, Elise, for working on that. Moving on to the next bullet point, we have a discussion and vote to request Eugene Montero supply the board with a written report of all complaints received by PERA that have been referred to investigation thus far, 7 days, within 7 days. So asking Mr. Montero to produce investigative reports back to this board within 7 days. Am I reading that correctly?
Yep, you read it correctly.
All right.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So let's have a discussion around that.
Can I just ask a question? Is
Yeah.
this just, are we looking for a status report from, it seems like Sheila and Eugene's number 3 and number 4 on the,
Are identical.
are identical. And so we're
Yeah.
just looking for a status report for all current cases that are within their purview?
Well, I was going to ask the same thing. If we're looking for a status to see how to move forward with the ones that are still pending, I guess.
I have a question. It's not a question, it's a statement.
Yeah, Ms.
My understanding is not so much as to see what not so much as to see, but is so much as to have the acknowledgement of exactly what Eugene Montero and Ms. Sheila Hubbard has done for this board that justifies what we have done so far in payment of the work they have done. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Now, the only, and I'll stipulate it this way here, the only thing that we have received from Montero, to my knowledge, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, is one report, and that was about the Hanley case. But Mr. Montero, according to Mr. Baptista, was working on several other cases that we have no information on. So I feel as though in the way this is written, we just want to update on everything that this gentleman and everything that this young lady has done. We heard it verbally, but yet we have no physical evidence of such.
So this is more regarding those detailed invoices that Eugene had submitted to the finance department for the city of Providence.
Including that.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
we do not know what his conversation was with Jose. So including that, the answer to that, Elise, is yes. But
Okay.
it's everything. I want to know everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Ms. Deb is talking about really the turnover all work performed, because which would include the, of course, when you want the invoices, that should be part of the audit, but the work that's been performed to date, because that work would reflect, I think, what you're saying, what was billed, as well as provide the board with whatever complaints and whatever work was performed. I don't think, at least what I'm gathering from people, this is like, I want you to finish the reports. I think it's what have you done, where is it, and
So like a
produce that
status
for the
report
board.
and any
Right.
applicable information supporting that.
Yeah,
Board
yeah,
prop-
the whole file, I guess, and yeah, anything that's outstanding. So all work performed, status, where they are, and so on. And if I'm thinking that this is what people aren't saying, please let me know. But I'm just trying to summarize to clarify.
Okay. And if I could just make a correction here, the request is to have reports provided as these 2 points are written, does not mention anything about expenditures. I will also have to caution the language that we're using, because it appears on the surface that we're talking about impropriety, and that's not the case here, right? We're looking at the work that's been done and really wanting to look at those reports and gather the information that we need in terms of where those investigations or those mediations may be. I have full confidence in the work that Mr. Montero has done. I have full confidence in the work that Ms. Hubbard was hired to do. So I just want to make sure that we're using the right language here.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so is there a motion to combine both the third and fourth bullet so that we may put together a formal request to the PERA investigator and also the PERA mediator?
So moved.
No, I can't offer it. Somebody else needs to offer it.
Hold on, I would just, for the record, and just so it's cleaner, I would separate it into two motions. You don't have to have two different, you don't have to have another discussion, but
Okay.
I would have separate motions for each person.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Jillian. So who would like to offer them?
So, Mr. Chair, so if we're not talking in this motion about an accounting, which should be covered, I think, in the other motion, accounting in a general course, then I would say a motion to provide status and all documents of any and all files received or worked on by PERA or by you to date, so by Mr. Montero, as one motion, and motion to produce all the basic status as well as all supporting documents and documents worked upon to date from Ms. Hubbard. Those would be my two motions.
Okay. So we can't have two motions on the floor at the same time, Michael. So I'll take.
Sorry about
it's
that.
Okay. It's okay. We'll take the first motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay. Discussion. All in favor?
Who's gonna make the request?
Oh.
I have a discussion. I'm the
Sorry. Go ahead. I
Who's
was
gonna make
moving
the
too
request?
quickly. I was moving too quickly. Go ahead.
All right.
Oh.
Who's gonna make the request, and how will we get receipt of it? That's what I'm asking.
Perhaps we can get assistance from our legal counsel to put the wording together for that, but I'd be more than happy to issue the request.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's
I was going to
7
say, you
business
just,
days.
Go ahead, Julian.
sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, somebody can just send him a letter and ask him for the information for Eugene, and send a letter to Sheila just asking her for the same information.
Okay. All right, so we're still in discussion. Any other points? Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Okay, who would like to introduce a motion for the fourth bullet?
I renew my motion. Is that good enough?
I don't know that that'll fly with Jillian, but okay.
Just again, a motion to request that Ms. Hubbard produce the status and any other supporting documents or documents worked on for PERA, really to date.
Very good. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Same process as the first time? Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. All right, thank you. Just doing a quick time check. Okay. Very good. So moving on to the next bullet, discussion and vote to authorize payment to the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, NACOL, for, okay, you're moving too quick for me there, Sean, for annual dues in the amount of $400. So I don't know that this requires much of a discussion. It is part of our current membership with NACOL, and as Michael had pointed out previously, a relationship that's necessary, particularly around professional development for the executive director and also for this board as well. So what I'd like to do is hop right into a motion to, if someone would propose a motion for this annual fee.
I make a motion that we authorize payment to NACOL for annual dues in the amount of $400.
Second.
Second, good. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. So we'll have to figure out the process for actually submitting that payment, as that would have been the executive director's responsibility prior. Number 6, discussion and vote on proposed changes to section 181 /22 of the City of Providence Code of Ordinance. Is this a discussion we were going to table, or are we still planning on hopping into this? Go ahead, Susan.
And
I just like to
sorry, just a clarification. It's 18 and a half, section
Okay,
2.
my bad. 18 and a half.
It's okay.
Now it makes sense.
I would just like to make a suggestion because of our time crunch here.
Yeah.
But if anybody, whether it's board or people out in the public, have any suggestions on changes that we should propose to the city council, that they email us. And the email is PERA@providenceri.gov. That way we can take everybody's comments, get back to people individually if we need clarification. So I kind of think that might be the best way for us to handle this right now. So we'd like everybody's input.
Okay, so there is a statement of voting on proposed changes. Is there a motion to table this discussion?
I move to table the discussion.
Is there a second? Okay,
Second.
discussion?
Why don't we table?
I'm tabling the
Sorry.
vote. I'm sorry.
She's
When are we
tabling
tabling?
discussion on, tabling discussion on point 6, so the public can have an opportunity to send in any suggestions they have, or thoughts of the board, so we can take those into consideration.
Are we looking at this at the next board meeting? Or
Hopefully.
Yeah, we can table it to that meeting, which is actually next week, or we can consider pushing it to the January meeting to give the public more time to provide feedback. I would, my recommendation would be the latter.
yeah, I vote the latter as well, just to get public input. I don't suffice.
Okay, thank you.
No,
All
that's good.
right, all in favor to table until January?
Aye.
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 Okay,
Aye.
opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. All right, we're just moving along here. Number 7, discussion and vote with respect to scheduling of a regular meeting date for future meetings. I think right now we have the 3rd Wednesday of each month. Are we looking at potentially moving that date from a Wednesday and also from the 3rd week of each month?
I mean, I'm proposing we have 2 meetings a month, so.
Okay.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, the Wednesdays work fine for me. It's just the time, because our meetings used to be at 6. Even if we could bump it up to 5:30, it would help. Because sometimes that, like a lot of us work a full-time job, and 5 o'clock is kind of tough.
Mhm.
I don't know if we could bump it up possibly to 5:30, but Wednesdays are fine for me.
Okay.
I would say also, and I just heard Susan say this, I would probably, thinking back to when we were kind of getting moving again with PERA, we at least in the short term try to do 2 meetings a month until we can get the positions filled and kind of get everything going. Because if we have problems, going month after month after month, it may take a lot longer to fill these roles. So at least in the short term, I think that might be a good idea, and then kick it back to once a month or whatever everyone wants to do ultimately. But I was just gonna throw that in there as well, that at least if there's any apprehension till we get these positions filled.
Okay, go ahead, Susan.
Sean, what is best for the clerk's office? The 1st and 3rd Wednesday of the month, or the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of the month? At 6 o'clock, if we did 6 o'clock.
There's not a general opinion on anything except for avoiding Thursdays. If the city clerk were to continue being the clerk for this for this board. There is the option for this board to consider their own, independent method of clerking, but besides avoiding Thursday nights, our office doesn't have a strong opinion.
So I guess it's what's best for everybody. Doesn't matter to me, whether it's the first and third or second and fourth.
I feel like it needs to be the first and third because there's not always 4 Wednesdays.
No, that's
I
fine.
don't think so. I don't know.
No, first and third is fine.
All right,
Does,
so
does that not work for anybody?
and I also think at least as Michael suggested, this would be a temporary
Mm-hmm.
two meetings a month until there's a new executive director and things are moving along. Once the board that feels comfortable that things are moving along in the way that PERA would like. All right, so is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we meet the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock,
6 o'clock, okay.
which means our next one would be the 23rd. Oh, wait a minute. No, sorry.
No,
Yeah, 16th, the 16th. So can everybody do the 16th?
yeah, that would not work. 16th of January or December?
December.
December.
Yeah, I would not be able to do the 16th, but I wouldn't want the meetings to stop.
Okay,
So-
so we'll stick with my motion of the first and third Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Okay. Is there a second? Did I hear one?
Seconded.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Elise, was that a vote or was that a question?
There was an I, sorry. There was an
Okay.
I and an itch, sorry.
All right, very good. Motion passes. Meetings will now be held twice a month on the first and third Wednesday of the month, beginning at 6 p.m. Thank you. All right, and the last bullet point of the evening, quick time check. Discussion and vote on next steps to move forward with a PERA mission. Who would like to lead that discussion? Go ahead, Susan.
There's something time sensitive for us because we can recommend diversionary reinvestments to reallocate city funding from the police department budget or the Office of Public Safety Commissioner to municipal recreation, youth programming, and employment opportunities, which has to go to the mayor and city council no later than the last day of January. So we're getting close. So again, for the sake of time, and I know we haven't had a chance to discuss this yet either, is that we take suggestions at our email address so that we can bring everything to the board when we have a lot of different, suggestions from the community and the board as well.
So that requires a change to the written mission of the organization?
Well, that's actually in the ordinance.
That's in the ordinance, okay.
It's in the ordinance.
All right. So what are the steps you're suggesting, Susan?
So just if anybody has any suggestions as to what those diversionary reinvestments should be in those 3 categories, again, municipal recreation, youth programming, and employment opportunities, that they submit those suggestions to our email address so that we can all review them and add our own suggestions as well.
So these would be funds that would be subtracted from public safety.
That's kind of the way that the ordinance reads.
Okay.
It says to reallocate city funding from the police department budget Office of the Public Safety Commissioner.
Okay. And in all 3 of those categories, obviously could utilize more funding. I'm certainly a fan of youth serving organizations receiving more funds from our city.
So.
Very good. So I think that last bullet did have the word vote in it. Again, when we use that, we kind of have to create a vote. But I think perhaps this is a situation where we can also table this,
Right.
Susan, to the next meeting to give folks some time to think about which organizations they would recommend. So is there a motion to table the discussion to the next meeting?
I'd like to make a motion that we table this discussion and vote until our next, actually, I think we should need to go out a little bit further than that.
Okay.
Because if we're gonna get the input, okay, I don't have a January calendar here. So whatever the second meeting, that third Wednesday in January is, I think that gives us sufficient time to get that information. And then, well, actually, no, because we have to have it to the May of the end of January. So that first meeting in January.
It would be Wednesday, January 6th.
Yep. So by that date, if we can have all the suggestions in, so that gives us time.
Very good.
Second.
All right, seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Very good. Motion passes. All right, folks. So we were able to conduct business within our allotted time frame. As per usual, I like to allow for public comment. Sean, do we have any individuals in the waiting room with their hands up? And what I'd also like to do is now hand over the reins here to Vice Chair Rankin.
Not here.
Is not, okay.
Unfortunately, he had a little emergency and had to leave.
Okay. So at least can I turn over the responsibility to you?
I'd be delighted.
Very good. All right. So thank you, folks. Have a good evening. And, I hope there's some good feedback from members of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The acting chair Swearingen, would you like me to promote the first person with their hand raised to the panelists?
Yes, please.
Okay, that would be Lisa Scorpio. Wait 5 seconds. Ms. Scorpio may unmute themselves and turn on camera if so desired.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to know why there aren't any community members that will be part of the hiring committee.
I'm actually open to having that conversation with Machiste, and I would like the community to be part of the hiring process, in my personal opinion, but I think the board can speak as well to that.
Are there any rules that community members cannot be part of the hiring committee?
Mike, you were the last, and Miss Ray
I was, but I'm not familiar at all with it. That's why I wasn't saying anything. I don't know what the rules call for, so until we kind of get those reviewed, I don't know what answer they give on that.
Yeah, we should know the answer to that, because you had this big, long discussion and there was not one word about the community being involved, and we need to be involved in this. The other thing is, I'm on 5 boards. Nobody on any of the boards I'm on keep their cameras off. I think it's absolutely rude to sit through a whole meeting with your camera off. I understand once in a while you turn it off to do something, but if I was sitting in front of you, you couldn't stick a picture in front of your face.
Okay, thank you for your opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, if Ms. Scorpio is done with her comments, we will go to the next person, who is Catherine Quinn, being promoted to panelist. And Catherine can unmute and turn on camera.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to turn off my camera just because I have bad internet and they don't go well together. So 2 questions. I wanted to also support what Lisa said, that I was disappointed not to hear about community involvement in the hiring process. So I would really hope that you would all take that into consideration. That I don't think it's of service to the community not to involve the community. And if you choose not to appoint or allow someone to serve on it from the community, I would respectfully ask that you make all the information that you're processing and all the meetings that you are involved in available to the public, so that we can know what's going on. So that's number one. And number two is a question. What is going on with Sergeant Hanley's case, which, you know, the board fired Mr. Batista over at the last meeting, and now is hiring a new executive director. But like, are you guys doing your what I understand is that like it's your job to investigate you know, complaints against police officers, and I'm unclear about what's going on. Like, are you, the last I heard because I was at the press conference when Mr. Batista released the footage, was that the reasoning behind not releasing it was that the Attorney General had indicated that releasing it might interfere with the due process that the police officer deserves, which as a member of the community, witnessing the disclosure of Jamal Gonzalez's body cams by the police makes no sense, because that's also an ongoing investigation. So can you guys please share with the community what you're doing about that? Because my understanding is like, that's what you're for. And if I'm wrong, can you explain what you're for to me? Because I'm kind of new to this. I would appreciate it.
Is there anyone from the board that would like to take that question? So, Ms. Quinn, there was a report produced from our investigator, Eugene Montero, with certain recommendations to the police department that described concerns with how the investigation was done and how the case was handled. That being said, I would defer to anyone else on the board, perhaps even Michael Fontaine as a lawyer in his real life, as to what those next steps are. But my understanding is we help produce policy and create the system to which justice could in fact be served. But I think that there's more to be done. And I'm not sure, as I'm not the board chair.
I'll ask it actually in a less hostile way. Thank you for, braving that. Can you recommend what we as a community can do to expedite the process whereby Sergeant Hanley would be held accountable for his egregious behavior and his...
Oh, we lost you.
Can't hear.
Ma'am, no
Ms.
one
Quinn,
can
you
hear.
might need to turn off your video.
What you're gonna do? Can you direct? I mean, what would you recommend as our community leaders who are here to help keep the police accountable and ensure that they treat the residents and citizens of our state as human beings? How can we assist you? Mr. Fontaine.
So, ma'am, I lost half of your audio, what you were trying to say. You kind of cut out. So if I misunderstand your question, please let me know. I think previously our council at the last meeting, if you were present for that, laid out what our mandate is on this board. And we're Ms. Barker can correct me if I state this wrong, but I believe we're supposed to review and recommend to the chief of police after they're done with their investigation what we feel or what we think should have occurred. The mandate in and of itself, and is that correct? Before I continue, Ms. Barker?
We can't hear Jillian.
I can't hear her. Maybe we lost her. Well, so what we do is, it's not
Hello?
a matter.
Hello?
Yeah, sorry. What's
Can you
our
hear me?
mandate?
Sorry, I was trying to, yeah, I
That's
mean,
okay.
what you said was not incorrect. What you said, Mike, was not incorrect. The board reviews policies, the board creates, community outreach opportunities and programs, but the board also reviews complaints from citizens and makes recommendations to the police department regarding discipline of officers and policies that they make.
Right. So, what would, now knowing that, and again, just because I mishapped your question, and my apologies, Ms. Quinn, your audio cut out. What other question would you like to know about what we're supposed to do?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
I
Yeah.
can, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm wondering what you are, I have seen the report. I have been following this. What are you doing? This is a community member, and I'm sure there are other community members who would like to, state publicly, and as opposed to just only reaching out to you privately, which I'm happy to do, that this is not being handled in a way that I feel comfortable with. It is not being handled in a way that the community feels comfortable with. And my understanding of this board is that, you're here to be a public, accountability so that the police force isn't investigating the police force, because that makes no sense, right? So there's got to be someone other than the police investigating their own, and that's why you guys are here. And I'm wondering, I understand two things that I'll say is I'm a little unsettled at the lack of confidence and understanding of this board as to what their role is. That's a little bit unsettling to me. The deference to each other to try to figure out who's going to tell me what it is. I mean, that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But also, if you're passionate about this subject, which I would imagine you are, because why else would you volunteer your time? You're obviously, invested in this process, right? And I'm not on this board. I'm totally obsessed and passionate about Sergeant Hanley's misbehavior. Okay, we're working on taking action outside in the public about this, but I guess the lack of fire or any kind of initiative coming from you guys disappoints me, and that maybe is my naivete. You were very passionate
Ms.
about
Quinn,
fire.
I'm not trying to cut you off, but I know we do have a limited amount of time,
Okay.
so I just want to
Your
try to.
enthusiasm for hiring Jose was astonishing, and your lack of action in prosecuting Sergeant Hanley is noteworthy.
Well, ma'am, just to respond to you quickly, that was my point, not to cut you off, but say that we have to kind of truncate this conversation, is that our board actually is supposed to secondarily come in behind the police department. We're not supposed to get out in front of the police department. That's my understanding of our mandates. I don't know why it's gone out that it's something other than that. We're here to protect the community, because if the police officers end up, say for example, and again, we don't know what's happening with Sergeant Hanley yet. He could go to court, he could be convicted, and he could be terminated. So in this particular case, what we need to do is make sure that we can look over their shoulder as things are going on. And then if we see something that ultimately we think is incorrect, we make that recommendation to the chief. Now, with all of what's going on here, again, as you may or may not be aware from the last meeting, we have oaths that we take not to disclose certain information and go out without it. Otherwise, we can't take that peek over the shoulder. So, what we're trying to do here is protect the community by the ways we're bound to protect the community. Everyone's saying, why don't you do it this way? And I'm not saying your way is a bad way, but it's the way that we cannot function officially. So I get everyone wants it to be done a certain way, but in order for us to do anything, we're bound to do it a particular way. And I just really, so it shouldn't be an unnerving thing. Someone is here trying to protect the community, but we're bound to do it a particular fashion, you know? So everything that's gone on previously was in contrary, and it's been a point of a lot of discussion, contrary to what how we're supposed to do this. And I think everyone on this board, whether they're here or not, are vested in trying to protect the community, but we have to go about it a particular way.
And
So,
which one of you is the one that's looking over the shoulder of that particular
no,
case?
well, yeah, well, it's not which one of us. It's we get the reports, we try to track the information, then we have to find out what's going on in the court system, what the outcome is, and whether or not, again, our thing is to review and make a recommendation. If somebody comes into us first, we can start our own sort of investigation and pull the reports and look at so on and so forth. But it's done through the investigators and the executive director, and it's brought to the board. The board reviews what's being done, and then we make a collective decision on things. So, you know, I can understand people might be frustrated that it's not going in a particular fashion, or they want it done in a different fashion. And again, if anyone on the board disagrees with this, let me know. But the point is, this is how we're required to do it by our own mandates. And that's the oath that we all took to do it in this particular fashion. So whether or not people get upset is really, we understand. But in order to have this board function and to even have a board, or if you were on the board, you still have to follow the same thing we're doing now. That's our requirements. Otherwise, we're not supposed to be here. It's a point for expulsion for everyone from the chair to whoever works in the office. Anything that we do like that about releasing stuff or not following these mandates, we all know that's a point for expulsion for any and all of us. So I understand that for anyone else listening who has the same feelings, we get the frustration. A lot of us individually, you know, I mean, I do defense work. I've defended people against this kind of conduct in court. I mean, not defend, I was a plaintiff against the Providence Police Department with my clients, and we had a nice settlement on this, but that's not what we do here on this board, you know? So we're working, we're keeping the community in mind. That's why we're soliciting emails from you all tonight. If you have some suggestions, we're more than willing to listen, but we still have to follow it through the rules that we're bound by.
Thank you.
Sean, I think in the interest of time, I think we should take one or two more people from the attendees list.
Raymond Watson has been promoted and can unmute and turn on the camera.
Good evening, board. How y'all doing again? It's me. I'm back again. Just want to express my concerns once again. I want to back up what Lisa said. The fact that there was no proactive conversation about the community being involved in hiring is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Especially after what y'all went through last month. So I don't get that at all. I have some specific conversation for Attorney Fontaine, and you don't need to respond, sir, since you didn't respond last time I spoke. But I heard you after I got done speaking, talking about the bylaws and how the bylaws kept you from being able to do this, that, and the other. What was amazing to me was that not only you were attorney, but as I understand it, you were involved in the development of the bylaws. So I'm wondering how an attorney who's involved in defense and has had cases against the local police department didn't see that there was language that was in there that might keep the director of PERA from being able to be as effective of a tool for the community as he should be. I just don't understand that, especially you being an attorney in this field. I'm in Boston right now. Hold on, you don't need to respond, sir.
I'll be more than happy to respond to your question.
I want to get my comments out, and then I'm going to get off because you guys need to move on. Secondly, the notion that you all are supposed to wait until after the police department does an investigation to make recommendations, I don't get that. I don't understand where that's at. Also, the woman brought up the fact that the same Providence Police Department and the same AG that's supposedly telling you can't release the footage because it might interfere with the case, release the footage on Jamal Gonsalves. So that's a complete hypocritical statement right there. There's no set policy. You aren't doing things by the book. I don't think you can point to me anywhere at all where what you just said is actually what you all are supposed to be doing. I've been the chair of the Providence Human Relations Commission for a number of years. I'm still on the board right now. I've been actively involved with boards for 15 years, all sorts of boards. So what I'm hearing from this board right now is rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. It's not true. Attorney Fontaine, once again, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You're an attorney and you're playing games with words because you think you can maneuver by people and you can't. You all need to get your act together. I told you this community's not going anywhere, and I told you our attention's on you. Please do what you're supposed to do because we're paying attention. Have a great night.
I've promoted someone with the name Richard to panelist who may unmute and turn on the camera.
All right, no camera. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yes.
What is the strongest measure you can take to get something from the police? Is it a subpoena, a motion to compel? What is the strongest action you can take?
Jillian, can you please answer that question?
Without having the ordinance in front of me, so this might be an incorrect statement, but I believe that the process is that the board has to request a subpoena from the city council. So the subpoena would actually have to come from city council. The board has to make the request to the city council for them to issue the subpoena.
And when that subpoena is, I mean, you mean like you have to wait for them to meet on it, discuss it, maybe even postpone your request and so forth? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I would strongly suggest you change that. That there be a period of time when you file something that the police should be required, like everyone else that goes into court, you have a time limit, or anyone else that's in these kinds of legal processes, you have a time frame you have to work in. And if you don't respond appropriately in that time, you know, it just seems to me that this board is becoming an act of perpetuity. You know, it's just a perpetual process without a resolution. I was at your last meeting before the virus. I think it was the last one or the next to the last one. And all I heard was stagnation. Everybody was, we're really going nowhere. We're not doing anything. We're meeting, we're talking, we're voting, but yet nothing is getting done. So I really think you have to have very firm time-stamped processes. You get a complaint in, within 5 days, this is done, within 10 days, this is done. The police have been resisting your efforts for documents. I've heard this from board members themselves. So when they resist, there should be some measure to force their compliance. And I don't know why, you know, we have to wait until you take it to the city council. God knows what they can do with it. They can sit on something for 6 months if they want. So I really think, you know, maybe you consider changing that so that there can be some more definitive possibilities of resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one more person with their hand raised, but we do only have 3 minutes left. Would you like for me to promote that person?
I'm gonna say yes.
All right, we have EB Saldana, Saldana, that is being promoted, and they can unmute and turn on their camera if they like.
Hi, sure, I can turn my camera on. I have a couple of more specific questions about this proposal to potentially, or the sort of suggestions that you're soliciting to be added to the docket or the agenda for the January meeting. 3 things. So as far as the question about what the mandate of PERA is, the proposed changes that were on the agenda for tonight that got tabled, we can edit and change your mandate, can't we? Is that on the table as far as making suggestions? I mean, if we're going to be emailing folks, we can actually change what the mandate of PERA is ostensibly. Is that something that you all get to decide based on what suggestions the public makes? Or does that have to go through city council? You asked for suggestions.
Jillian, that's your question, but I think that what people don't seem to understand is that this comes through city council. We're here with the support of city council, so that would have to go through them. A lot of the ordinances and policies and procedures come from a national division, NACOL. You might have heard that term come up. So our procedures, bylaws, et cetera, shadow NACOLs, which they should. And then a lot of the power we get comes from the city council. And that's why we have to go to them for them to basically say, yes, you can have this information via subpoena. So I understand, and this is just a general response. People are saying, well, why don't you guys do this? And why don't you guys do that? Again, this goes back to, we have a set of rules we were handed to us that we have to follow. So I would
I get
suggest
that. I'm asking, can we
yeah.
change the rules?
Well, that's
Is
up
that
to
something
them.
that you all get to decide, or is that something that has to go through city
That's
council?
no, that's what I'm saying. We don't get to decide.
Okay.
And
So we
Jillian,
have
you
to
can
talk to
correct
city
me.
council.
I think
Fine.
city council is the people you go to.
Second question, and I know that I know we don't have that much time, but second question, you mentioned diversionary funds that you all have the option to move around. Does that also have to go through city council, and how much money do you have?
Okay, maybe I can answer that one. It's just stated in the ordinance, there is no dollar figure. It's a request that has to go to the city council and the mayor. It's vague, but it's there.
Recommendations solely.
Okay, that's
Not
fine. Those are
unilateral
my questions.
decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to be respectful. Do you feel?
I mean, city council hasn't exactly been supportive of any of the changes that people have been making or suggesting. They haven't exactly said, yeah, we are so on your side. It is also a fight with the city council. Any ordinances that we have to change in order to actually make changes to PERA to get the things that we need and want are not going through. We're sort of in a bind here that we don't get support from either city council or from PERA, and it's sort of a back and forth. And that's fine. I get that there are rules, but we also have no options for changing those rules if city councilors aren't listening to people. We're not really given any power here. And I think that's why you're seeing so much hostility and concern from the public is that, yeah, we get that there are rules. We can also change those rules ostensibly, and yet we have no political will or consciousness or collective power here in order to actually do that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that here, saying that, yeah, I get there are rules, and also understanding that we're not in a position to change rules no matter how many calls we make or how much we complain. That's all. I'll go.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I think that there needs to be a motion to
Adjourn.
So I was looking at Sean to see if he was going to say something.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I think that we have it. Thank you very much. And we will see everyone the 16th, I believe.
Yep.
The 16th at 6 p.m.
Yep. Thank you.